Hello, wine world, and thank you so much for joining me tonight on Sip Side Note Episode 3. Tonight, I will be discussing a few things, such as the Noble Grape 2020 theme I have for Amy on Cloud Wine. I'm also going to be sharing some wine book recommendations that I've been reading, such as I Taste Red by Jamie Goode. I also had read a few other books I really recommend, especially if you enjoy reading. I watched a movie over the weekend that I want to talk about, discuss, and recommend that you watch. Lastly, I'm going to be sharing some wine news. And for the first time, I'm announcing I now have online wine courses that I will be sharing on Facebook for the month of March. So first, I'm going to start with the wine that I am drinking tonight. So I opened up this 2016 Campuget. It is a Syrah, since I'm focusing on Syrah for the month of February and going into March, and it's Grenache Noir, 30%. This delicious wine from the famous Chateau de Campuget exhibits an inviting garnet red color and aromas where blackberry flavors mingle with spices and pepper. This is the perfect wine to have with leg of lamb, grilled or roasted meats. Located in southern France, this wine produces Rhone's wines of great distinction that truly reflects their sunny Mediterranean origin. This wine is 13% alcohol by volume. Oh, and I found this wine on, where did I find this wine? I'm pretty sure this was a wine till sold out purchase. So this is the color. It's a beautiful garnet color. It's deep. Hi, Wayne. The appellation says appellation. Now, this is French, so pardon me. Costières des Nimes. Can you read that? I will share the link. Well, you know how wine till sold out, actually, it's flash sales, so they don't always have your wines that you buy the same vintage. So most likely this producer will be available at a later time, I'm sure, if it succeeds in sales. So I wanted to share my first impressions. I'm very impressed with its color. It's nice and deep. Nice red. It is, I know you're not able to see me do the rim test here, but it is clear and it has a nice strong pale rim. On the nose, I'm getting those deep red fruits. I'm smelling pepper and spices. Wow, those peppers are really there. That spicy flavor is very inviting. I think that's what my favorite thing is about a Syrah. I would say it's a medium to long finish. It's nice and silky. I would say medium plus tannins. And I would say the acidity is medium as well. I would also say that it's a dry wine. Most Syrahs from France are dry. And I would give this I would do it a 4 out of 5. It's by the books kind of Syrah. It's delicious. As stated on the back of the wine label, it's You can use it with many meals, especially with meats. I'm not one to pair wine with meals. I'm more of a charcuterie board. So I'm going to put nice Italian meats and cheeses together and munch on some crackers. That's kind of how I like to roll with my wine. Moving on to some of the topics tonight, I want to say I am making 2020 the year for me to teach you, wine world, all about the noble grapes. So for 2020, I'm designating a grape or two, depending upon what my schedule is. And I'm going to be sharing about the wine regions, challenging you to try and explore new wines by giving some ideas of which wines I'm trying. And if you want to sip along with me and participate in this challenge, it's hashtag OCW challenge, On Cloud Wine Challenge. So for the month of January, we were going over Pinot Noir. It was successful. I had a few people participate and use the hashtag, and I shared that on my social media, especially on Instagram stories for those that were participating. For the month of February, I designated Syrah. And due to my busy schedule, and it's just been a crazy season of being sick in our household, I'm moving Syrah as well into March. And for March, we are going to be discussing Viognier. So why I chose Viognier is because it is just one of those grapes that, blends with Syrah. So I kind of wanted to go talk about the French regions. I want to discuss for Syrah, Australia, Chile, and the United States. Here in Long Island, I had a very nice Shiraz, which is Syrah in Australia or South Africa, and how delicious it really is. Like I said, it's really about those peppery, spicy notes. Has any of you experienced Syrah? Do you guys have any recommendations that you recommend for me to try? Feel free to comment below. I've had a few that were listed that I have to try, like the Rhone, and I'm gonna try maybe even Argentina, Mendoza, or like I said, I know there's some wines here on Long Island. I would like to share some of those producers as well. This will all be in a blog post of what I'm going to be trying for the month of March. Next, I want to quickly discuss the recent book I read. I read The Science of Tasting Wine by Jamie Goode. Now, this book, no joke, has taken me probably closer to 2 months to read. I think it's full of information. I'll read you some of the chapters so that you know what it contains. Introducing the chemical senses, wine in the brain, wine flavor chemistry, individual differences in flavor perception, constructing reality, the language of wine, is wine tasting subjective or objective, and a new approach to wine tasting. So this book is under 250 pages, yet there's so much science, It does help that I have a scientific educational background with a master's of science, but I read it kind of like a research paper. For those that studied in science, those papers can be really long and really detailed. It is interesting, and it is actually one of the books that required for my next certification, which is the CWE, the Certified Wine Educator by the Society of Wine Educators. And so what I plan to do for the month of March, I'm going to do a second reread, and I'm going to be sharing my personal notes and my flashcards with you if you are interested. And in order to be on that list of obtaining this information of when I'm releasing these study guides and flashcards and any review sessions, you have to be on my email list. So with that, I'm going to be sharing my list. So I need you to, how do I say it? So it's I just added that link that you can see that will give you directly to my landing page to subscribe to my mailing list. Daniel says, I enjoy Petite Syrah. Yeah, it's interesting. It's not exactly related to Syrah, but you spelled everything right. And I can discuss that in a little bit, but the Syrah that I'm focusing on is a Noble Grape. The Petite Syrah it's another variety, but it's not as internationally known. It's more of a regional grape in France and other regions as well. But for the focus of 2020, I'm just going to be focusing on the Noble Grapes, which means it is more internationally grown and popular, and it's done well in several regions. So the Syrah I'll be talking about for the month of March will be like grown in places like Australia and Chile and France and the United States. And there's Italy, there's Old World and New World regions where this grape grows. For the next thing, I've had in the past 2 years my little segment called Book and Bottle. And Book and Bottle is where I pair a book and a bottle. So I have just finished listening to an audiobook called A Natural History of Wine by Ian Tattersall. And I have to say, this was also a scientific read, yet it was much more approachable. It flowed better. It mentioned some science, but it was read as a narrative where you were wanting to learn more. And I think you would enjoy this more actually than I Taste Red. If you're a little bit overwhelmed by the scientific jargon. I'm also finishing up a series I started 2 years ago, exactly when I was interested in starting this wine journey. It is the Wine Murder Mystery series by Ellen Crosby. I am right now on the last book in the series, book number 9. And if you like murder mysteries, this series is for you. It is involving Lucy Montgomery. She is the main character, and she owns a vineyard in Virginia. And this author, Ellen Crosby, often talks about, the ins and outs of the vineyards, but with the twist of there's always some type of murder or crime happening on this vineyard. So I'm happy to finish the series, but yet I'm really sad because it brought a lot of entertainment. I usually listen to my audiobooks on the drive to and from work. So I'm sad that the series is ending, but I'm excited because now I can focus on a different series. If you have a recommendation for great audiobooks, please comment below. I'm looking forward to that. Question from, excuse me, sorry. Okay. There's a question from Wayne. Where is Syrah grown in Italy? It is actually grown in Puglia, Sardinia, and I believe Sicily and Tuscany. It might not be a grape that's more well known in those regions, but doesn't mean it's still not grown there. It could be used as a grape that's often blended as well, since we know that Syrah can be in a GSM blend, such as Grenache, Mourvedre, Syrah. Daniel says, if you enjoy wine-related mysteries, give Sharpshooter by Nadia Gordon a try. You know what? I will have to do that. I will add that to my Goodreads. So overall, those were the recent books that I've read. If you are interested again in my second reread of I Taste Red, please subscribe to my email list. Also on my blog, all the way at the bottom is listed my Goodreads books that I'm reading at the time. So you can always read and sip along with me. This past weekend, I had time to watch a movie, Bottle Shock. It's one of those movies that the wine community often talks about that you should watch. And you know what? I have to agree with them. I think what I liked most about this movie, it's about the 1976 Judgment of Paris, which set the Californian wines globally known. Alan Rickman, whom, if you don't know, and is Snape in Harry Potter, and he had several other famous acting roles. He plays the main character, and he has this little shop in Paris, and he kind of wants to put himself on in the global wine community by kind of like making a stink with American versus French wines. He is a French wine snob. He speaks French, but he's an Englishman. Oh my gosh, I'm forgetting his name. Spurrier. And he becomes this well-known wine critic. But he did it because it was the bicentennial of the United States of America becoming the United States. And I really enjoyed seeing the vintage cars and the hippie feel of the 1970s California, and how these farmers were really struggling to make it, and how only their wines were tasted by those in the area. But this whole blind tasting that happened in Paris by several well-known French wine critics, really, it was just so funny to see the scene and, see all the judges' faces. And there's some really great lines in there, and there's some conflict between the Chateau Montelena owner and father and son. And honestly, it was a really just nice movie to watch about wine. Highly recommend you guys see it. I shared it on my latest blog post. I found it on Amazon Prime if you are a Prime owner. So in the wine news, I'm going to be reading off of my phone here. I have three articles that I'd like to share quickly. So one of them being from Wine Enthusiast magazine, titled "The California Wine Industry Sets Ambitious Export Goal Among Surplus Talks." So I read recently that California Wines has a surplus of bottles, so much so that they're going to be decreasing the price of these wine bottles. So here I have a photo of Jancis Robinson and Robert P. Koch. And hundreds of wine industry professionals gathered at the Culinary Institute of America at Copia in Napa, California on Tuesday, February 18th for the inaugural Export 2020 California Wine Global Export Conference, a day to think about California wine in the global marketplace. California wine exports have increased 60% by value in the last decade, accounting for around $1.5 billion in winery revenue. However, Honor Comfort, the vice president of international marketing for the Wine Institute, also outlined an ambitious long-term goal for that figure to exceed $2 billion by 2030. California represents 95% of all exports from the U.S., with Canada the #1 export market for California wine, according to Robert P. Koch, Wine Institute president and CEO. That 2030 goal can be reached by both bringing more California wineries into export and more California wine to international markets. This is an attractive prospect considering the news of the state's grape surplus this year and vintners' fear of domestic price decreases as a result. Currently, Canada is the largest export market for California wines. In Ontario, home to 40% of the country's population, California wines represent 15% of the market according to the Liquor Control Board of Ontario, with California Cabernet Sauvignon alone accounting for 187 million per year. In Ontario, California wine is second only to Italy's 18% market share. President and CEO Dr. George Solis spoke to major trends he sees among consumers. He noted that while customers are buying less, purchasing habits are favoring higher-end wines, with a rise in sales of ultra-premium and iconic products. Refreshing, lighter wines like rosé and sparkling wine are gaining interest, as are health-conscious alternatives like low-alcohol or low-calorie bottlings. He also stressed the increased importance of sustainability and storytelling. Wine writer and author Jancis Robinson, Master of Wine, commented on California wine's position around the world in a Q&A session with wine writer Elaine Brown. Robinson recalled how she first came to California in 1969 and has returned annually since then. The early 1980s were a magical time for California wine in the UK. Basking in the afterglow of the 1976 Paris tasting, Robinson observed California winemakers would travel the world to introduce them to their bottles. However, the author noted she was not a fan of what happened to California wines in the 1990s, an era she described as dominated by longer hang times and richer, riper, stronger wines that didn't shine well with the UK consumer. At the moment, it's a mass of inexpensive California wine on the bottom shelf in the UK, Robinson added. I suspect people who buy it don't know or care where it comes from. Price is the driver, which is very true. Oftentimes, I keep my prices under $40. Now, Jancis observes that the market is much more free-form. The wine industry is in the greatest state of flux today than ever in my 44 years. What younger people want is breadth. They don't want to go to the top. They want to change from the handful of international grape varieties, and they're not chasing alcohol, oak, or color. That's true. I've been seeing a lot of sustainability wines being shared on Instagram, or different varieties that you don't really hear of. It's all about chasing those unknown grapes. She observed a move to lighter, fresher wines worldwide and an explosion in interest of lesser-known grape varieties, particularly from indigenous and ancient vines. She estimates there are currently 1,500 varieties used in winemaking right now, with California containing a treasure trove of old vines yet to be utilized. She also highlighted the California winemaking community as one that values cooperation and a community investment, topics valued by a younger generation of wine drinkers, and touted the state as having the most quality-conscious growers and producers. The top California producers have taken more trouble to get every detail right than anywhere else, says Robinson. If one place in the world can look at sustainability holistically, it's California. The second one I wanted to share is just a quick headline that English Sparkling has its most successful launch in 15 years, as reported by the Drinks Business. The seeding an English sparkling wine brand in the UK restaurant sector has been the most successful year in the last 15 years, according to the manager of its distributor. And the last article, Insight: How Japan is Defining Its Own Wine Culture. With global warming happening, there are what we call new latitude wine regions. So we have Japan being one of them. The avenue to Tokyo's Meiji Shrine is lined with 60 Burgundian oak barrels stacked opposite a similar number of sake casks, as anyone visits the city this summer for the 2020 Olympic Games will see. By the way, this is posted by Decanter. Since the shrine was built to commemorate Emperor Meiji, who ruled Japan from 1867 to 1912, the sake plays a key role in Japan's Shinto ceremonies. One might conclude that wine also has a prominent position. In the late 19th century, Japan modernized and interest in wine ensued. Today, wine is not a part of daily life for most people, but there's a significant wine culture that spans formal dining to casual drinking. France is central to Japanese wine culture. French cuisine, long seen as the pinnacle of Western fine dining, has helped to cement the reputation of French wines. However, it is Burgundy that has captured the imagination of connoisseurs. Japan was relatively early to appreciate the Côte d'Or. Department store Takashimiya has imported Domaine Leroy since 1972. The barrels at the shrine, installed in 2006, are testament to Burgundy's prestige. The Japanese have traditionally favored Grand Cru and Premier Cru over village wines. Established restaurants age stock until it's nomigoro, or ready for drinking. Many of Japan's fine wine consumers are in their best 60s and 70s and insist on the best. However, even traditional restaurants use Korovin to offer smaller servings and combat rising prices and reduced consumption. Sparkling wine is another favorite. For the past decade, champagne has ridden a wave in Japan, which ranks only behind the UK and US in imports for volume in wine. Higher demand for champagne has led to price rises and created a market opening for cava, Franciacorta, and other traditional method sparkling wines. In 1993, actually, let me skip that part. A new generation of consumers took to the category, and natural wines are no longer confined to specialist venues. Entertaining at home is traditionally not common, and when dining out, the refrain "omakase" or "I leave it to you" is often heard when ordering both food and wine. Thus, sommeliers play a leading role in wine culture, and wine pairing menus are popular. For these, sommeliers cast off classical ties to find the right match. The article goes on to say that Japan has followed a well-worn path from the classic wines of France to other European origins and to the New World. However, Japan's delight in high-end Burgundy, prestige cuvées, and grower champagnes, natural wines, and more recently homegrown wines is evidence of a country defining its own wine culture. So that's very interesting. Some comments. I consider it to be a new Latitude wine, Wayne, because it, it said in the article that wine wasn't so new. It probably was part of the traditional culture, but to me, it's a new Latitude wine because it's probably just becoming more popular on the global wine market. Similar to Switzerland, that holds wines like just to their own country. I don't really see Japan, especially as a US import wine, on the shelves. So that's why I call it a new Latitude wine. It could also be because maybe they're increasing the wine regions. I know China is also a rising wine region as well, and more imports are coming in. Sarah says, I noticed that not many people are looking for the unknown grapes either. However, the number of grapes that are unknown are growing. I was speaking with someone the other day who didn't know that Tempranillo was, and I thought that it was relatively common. How do you think we can promote these lesser known wines? I think that's a really good point. It's just, the wine community is still growing and we're becoming more technology dependent. So I feel as though those wine enthusiasts who are just beginners might not know all about these wine varieties that are out there. To us, Tempranillo is something that we've known and we studied, but it's kind of common in our society where those that are beginning to drink wine, they start out with the sweeter palates, they start out with those Moscatos, and it takes a while for them to get to that dry palate, and they enjoy those. So I know with your line of work, you have to discuss and open the minds to these new wine enthusiasts. I think the best way to kind of share these more popular varieties and lesser known grape varieties is just by bringing a bottle to your family functions or social gatherings. Bring a new bottle, a new variety each time, and that's the best way to share these varieties with other people. Otherwise, everyone gets in that same funk where they go to the wine store and they just keep buying that same bottle of wine just because it's familiar. One of my goals on Instagram is to explore new wines. That's kind of my motto for Amy on Cloud Wine brand. I want to help you understand wine, to make it less intimidating, to help you explore these wine regions that keep popping up. Every year, every month, there's a new appellation being added. And it's my goal to share that information with you. I hope that answers your question. Daniel says, Syrah, I was at a local wine bar over the weekend and they were pouring a white Sangiovese. I never knew there was such a thing. It resembled a Sauvignon Blanc, but with pear notes instead of the citrus scent and flavor I normally get from the Sauvignon Blanc. Daniel, that's a good point. So usually a Sangiovese, we're used to it being a red wine, but any red grape could be a Blanc. It could be a white version simply by the winemaker not macerating it in the skins. So out east, I had a similar occurrence where I had a white Merlot. Completely different flavor profile than a regular Merlot, just simply because it's missing the tannins that it usually obtains from the skins. It was more citrus-like. It was actually very nice. I can't remember all the notes I have on it, but I can tell you it was Bridge Lane Wines. And it comes in, I had it in its canned form, but they also have bottle as well. If you want to check that out, I can gladly share that link with you on the side in a side comment. Wayne, so I haven't honestly checked what's been new lately. I do know, I believe in Washington, in the Eola Amity region, I think there was another appellation recently added at the end of 2019. But you know what? The best source to get that information from is the Society of Wine Educators. I follow Wit, Wine, and Wisdom, which is created by Miss Jane Nichols, who is in charge of the education portion. She posts monthly where these appellations are being recognized. I believe even, I want to say there was a recent appellation in Italy also. I can look that up for you and I can send you a direct message once I can send you those links. But that's what's so nice about the wine world is there's something always going on. It's not set in stone. We have the well-known regions that we've read in our textbooks, but like I said, it's just every year there are being more added. Like I'm sure New Mexico, Texas, Missouri, there's even those states that we haven't, that are having, that are growing more wines and they're working on becoming recognized through the American viticulture areas. Yes. Thank you for the correction. Yes, Eola Amity is in Oregon. Yes, you're correct. But that is what's going on. So I'm glad you also agree. It is a great blog. Okay, guys, last and exciting thing, online courses. So I've been dabbling with this idea for a few months and finally I just decided to do it. So online courses, what I'm going to be doing is similar to what I have here tonight. It's going to be live courses where I'm going to be sharing the screen with some PowerPoint slides. I'm going to be providing study guides and flashcards sets via one of my favorite sites, Quizlet. And my first one will be a salute to Syrah. So what I mentioned earlier today, I am going to be discussing in this online course Syrah, its major flavor profile, the wine regions you can find them in, and then I'm going to be challenging you to try these wines. So I'm going to be providing a list of regions that you can go find wine in your price range of what you want to taste. And for that week, we will be tasting it and we will be discussing it. The second course I have after that is focusing on Viognier, and it's going to be Vibrant Viognier. So if you are interested in these online courses, leave a comment below. I'm going to be talking about it in my upcoming blog posts, and I'm so happy you're excited for that, Sarah. And I'm going to be working on that over the next 2 weeks. We're going to be starting in March. It's the Salute to Syrah is going to be 3 weeks long. It's going to be 3 nights. We're going to be discussing 3 wines. And we're going to be, like I said, we're going to be talking about the flavor profile. We're going to be talking about wine regions. And we're going to go over some maps, and we're going to be having flashcards and study guides, and just a little fun quiz, kind of keep you in check that you understood everything. And you're excited for Viognier. That's great. Thank you. So that's what I have in store. I'm really excited. Big things are happening. And that's it, guys. I'm going to wrap up. If you guys have any questions, this is my Q&A portion of the evening. And I will give you a few minutes to type in some comments. Sarah says, Virginia is a great place for Viognier. So thank you so much for sharing that. If you can list some vineyards or producers that you recommend, I would love to share that in my online course. Daniel says, sounds great. I love wine, but feel like such a dunce about it. Looking forward to participating. Daniel, wine is a welcoming conversation. Don't feel that way. Everyone starts somewhere. 2 years ago, I was feeling the same way you feel, and I read books because I was interested. I tried several different varieties. There's only like a few vineyards that I've had doubles, meaning, here on Long Island, I go out to the vineyards and I taste those wines. But other than that, I always challenge myself to find a new producer, find a new bottle. One of my favorite ways to go about exploring new wines is using the Vivino app. It's my favorite thing. I go to the wine store if I'm kind of debating between 2 bottles. I'll scan them, read some reviews, and then that's what I'll pick. Also, it's fun because it gives you the price of what's the average price of that bottle, and you can kind of see if it's overpriced at that store or not. Sites like Wine Searcher tells me where I can find those bottles at the closest store in relative to my home. So there's ways. If you stick with me, I will make wine fun. And that is my goal, to help you explore new wines. Sarah, tonight I'm drinking a Syrah and Grenache Noir blend from Chateau de Campuget. It's a traditional rouge. You know what? I taste more of the Syrah in this, mainly because it's 70% versus the 30% Grenache Noir. And it's pleasant. I rated it a 4 out of 5 earlier. Daniel says, what drew you to wine versus other beverages like beer or whiskey? You know what? I never was a big wine drinker, but back in college, one of my sorority sisters introduced me to wine, and it was the sweeter wines. We were doing the Moscatos and the Rosés and, those box wines, Franzia, like all those. But it was actually my trip. I treated myself as a graduation present, completing my master's of science degree. I went to Europe for 35 days, and we stopped in Florence and Tuscany. And in fact, I wrote a little bit more about that experience on my blog post on Cloud Wine Journey. And I had a flight of wine in Tuscany, and I always thought I was going to be a white wine drinker. Well, I had a Sangiovese, and the tannins, the cherry flavors, the pepper, it was just delicious. And since then, since 2015, now almost 5 years later, I've been on this wine journey. I dedicated my time to reading wine books and tasting different wines, and I just want to share my journey and help beginners like yourself understand wine and make it fun. If I'm going out and wine isn't an option, my second choice is rum. I prefer rum and cokes. Those slushy drinks like a Miami Vice. At the beach, I'll drink wine coolers. I'm just not more of a beer or whiskey person. Daniel says, my first wine was wild vine strawberry wine in college. Would drink it while making pastaroni and felt super fancy. It's unpalatable now. That's how I feel about the Franzia and, oh gosh, I can't even remember the low budget wines. Just not good quality wines compared to what I look for now. You know, I really stay true to that Vivino app, and that really guides me on the quality of wines that I'm looking for within my price range. I usually keep my wines under $40 just to make it affordable, budget friendly, and there are some great ones out there. It's very rare that I go to 40. I really stick to like no more than $25. But my biggest tip for you guys is to search or pick a wine by its wine region. So like I would pick a Riesling from Germany, or I would pick a Cabernet Sauvignon from France, or I would pick it like that. I would do Syrah or Shiraz from Australia. That's how you know you can get the best quality wine, because you know those regions are well known for it. Syrah, my favorite varietal. I'll start with reds. I really enjoy Sangiovese, since this is what started my whole wine journey. And I also enjoy Cabernet Franc. Here on Long Island, my favorite is Jamesport Vineyards. In fact, I really got to get out there sooner rather than later, because I miss their wine. Plus, they have this new brick oven pizza I got to go try. For whites, I prefer Gewürztraminer. I really like wines that have like those peppery notes, and I enjoy Riesling. What's your favorite? All right, well, I want to thank you all for tuning in tonight for my Sip Side Note 3, episode 3. One more question. Daniel says, any idea how much time you spend weekly studying wine or participating in wine-related activities? Yeah, I would say I try to read at least an hour a day regarding wine material for studying purposes. And then I would say my best tip after that is like take a day off. Like, so for example, because this is what's going to be happening for this second reread of I Taste Red, I'm going to be reading, I have a study schedule that I'm going to be sharing on my Facebook group and on my blog. I'm going to be reading chapters 1 and 2, writing thorough notes. I'm going to be creating study guides and these flashcard sets. This is probably going to take me, like, I'm going to give myself 5 days because I want to do it right. But for review sessions, I try to do like an hour a day. that's what I do. In preparing for my latest exam, I studied over a period of 8 months, designated each month with a different region. Previously, I did a little series of wine crew webinars on Wednesdays, and I went over Napa, I did a California series, I did a French series, and I think I did one more. What did I do? Can't remember at the moment, but I would say weekly, closer to 10 hours a week. You got to keep up on it. Otherwise, if you don't immerse yourself in learning and tasting wine, it kind of goes away really fast. Sarah says her favorite varietals are Nebbiolo, Cab Franc, and Riesling. Oh, so we have two in common. And Daniel says his favorite is Pinot Noir. I like Cab Franc, Riesling, and Sangiovese, and Gewürztraminer. So I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you again so much for participating tonight. For those that are watching on the replay, I hope you enjoy as well. Please leave any comments and I will get back to you as soon as I can. So thank you for joining me again, and I hope you explore new wines. Good night.